afternoon.
Mind your way.
There you go. There you go. Hey, I want to thank you. First of all, I want to thank every one of you for caring enough about being here. Personally, I gave up some things that I normally would have done today in order to come. I'm sure many of you gave up some things you'd like to be doing, perhaps in the yard, or maybe at home, but you gave that up to come here, and that's very good. I'm very thankful for that. As a fellow citizen, I want to thank you. Second of all, I want to thank all those who work behind the scenes. You know, I've put on these kind of events before. I've been a part of these kind of events, and it takes a lot of planning, a lot of coordination, a lot of people that you don't see on the platform make possible this kind of event. And so I want you to give them a round of applause. Whoever they are, you give them a big round of applause because they did something really good.
Yay, Mary.
I also want to take just a moment to thank you for allowing me to speak. There are hundreds of speakers you could have selected, and I'm very appreciative that you've decided to select me. And I'll do the best I can today to share with you some thoughts on the Bill of Rights. But I wanted to say first, thank you for allowing me to speak today. Now, I'll be posting my remarks at my blog site at lifewithsmiles.com. lifewithsmiles.com. You can go on there, click on the blog site, and you can see and read what I'm going to share with you today. Also, I brought my lovely wife, Miss Terry. I had to drag her over here to help me, but she's helping to man the book table. I brought two of my books, Angels All Around, which is about angels, and Uncommon Common Sense, which is a book that I think you'll enjoy reading as well. So I hope that you'll go by and look those over. You know, it's really unfortunate that we have to have a rally like this. But it's a sad truth that few people seem to really care about the growing erosion of our civil liberties by an out-of-control, much too large federal government. And I want to tell you what the root of the problem is. The root of the problem can be traced to the failure of raising children who understand what it means to be Americans and who don't realize how America became such a prosperous world power. That's part of the problem. The second part of the problem is that there is a faulty understanding of what it takes to protect us as citizens. I mean, many people believe that in order to be protected from future terrorist attacks, that we somehow have to give up liberty or give up some of our rights. So we have things like the Patriot Act, which gives the federal government the ability to read your emails, to listen in on your phone calls, and to search and seize your property without warrant or without probable cause. We have such things as a Supreme Court justice being nominated who believes that the government can ban books and ban speech that it deems offensive. I mean, it's no wonder, it's no surprise that we have so many citizens, so many politicians, so many government bureaucrats, and so many judges who have such little knowledge and respect for the natural rights we have as citizens, even though those rights are protected in our Bill of Rights. So we have these kind of things like the Patriot Act, like Supreme Court justices who have no business being nominated. We have such things like a U.S. Border Patrol policy that wants to implement a 100-mile radius around our country areas, including the coast, that would be deemed Constitution-free zones that would allow them to search and seize property without warrant or due process. It's no wonder we have things like senators promoting bills that would deprive you and me of due process to fly on an airplane or to keep and bear arms simply by placing you on a no-fly list. If all they say is, we believe you're an enemy combatant or a terrorist. You see, ladies and gentlemen, these are just a few of the threats that are immediate to us and to our Bill of Rights. Now, while there may be some benefit to some government activity, there may be some benefit, what really is interesting is that the government refuses to do the things that could protect us, that would not tread on our rights. That's what's really disappointing. Instead of using these wrong-headed kinds of ideas, how about some more common sense approaches to protect us without eroding the Bill of Rights? For instance, here's a suggestion. Consider that profiling is not an ugly word. How many grandmothers in wheelchairs have recently attempted to blow up an airplane? How about this suggestion? Security officials should pay less attention to what people carry on the plane and more attention to the people getting on the plane. That would work better. The Israeli government does that. They profile, and they don't profile by racial profiling. Instead, they interview every person before that person gets in the check-in line. And then once they're in the check-in line, people are interviewed and asked questions. The Israeli government could care less what you bring on the plane because they've already cleared you to be on the plane. That's a more common sense approach. Here's a suggestion for you. How about securing our borders instead of eroding our rights? That would be a good suggestion. But as we look at things like this, I tell you, as we look at things like this, here's the problem. The problem is, in order for us to truly be protected and to have our sacred rights protected, it will require politicians who first know the Constitution and politicians, second, who will defend the Constitution. Politicians who are more interested in the country than they are in the party. Politicians who are more interested in the principle than they are in the power. The whole point is, you cannot choose which part of the Constitution to enforce and which part you don't enforce. All of it must be enforced and applied. In the Declaration of Independence, our founding fathers proclaimed that we are endowed by our Creator with certain inalienable rights that no government can take away. In the Constitution, they constructed a government that is designed to secure and protect our liberties. But because all governments tend to abuse power, the Founding Fathers provided an extra layer of support and protection for our freedoms, and that layer is called the Bill of Rights. We must stand together, and we must demand that all of our representatives uphold their oath of office. And don't think for a moment now that there's going to be time to act on this later. We have already seen several of our rights in the Bill of Rights eroded by an out-of-control, far too large government. We still have a chance to reclaim what is ours and what's been entrusted to us. If we unite in our efforts to protect and encourage our Bill of Rights. Now I'm going to tell you, both of my grandfathers were combat veterans. My father was a combat veteran. And I'm not ashamed to say that I love this country. I love our flag. I love our Constitution. But I am worried. I am worried about some things that are going on right now in our country, things that are eroding our constitutional liberties. We have seen, piece by piece, the power grabbers of an out-of-control, far too large federal government dismantle the Constitution and the Bill of Rights. And we, the people, are paying the price. History has shown that government, if given a chance, will not hesitate to take away citizen rights. Oftentimes citing it's for the common good. The Constitution and the Bill of Rights were written to protect people from government and to protect us from our enemies. As you think about the Bill of Rights today, as you focus on the Bill of Rights, as we come together and talk about the Bill of Rights, I want you to remember something. I want you to remember that the fundamental basis of this nation's laws was given to Moses on the mountain. The fundamental basis of the Bill of Rights comes from the teachings we get from Exodus to Isaiah, to the Gospels, to Paul, to Jesus. if we don't get serious about promoting and protecting our Bill of Rights, we will finally end up with a totalitarian government that does not believe in rights for anyone except for the government. Now's the time to unite together and to support our Bill of Rights. And I thank you for being here. And I thank you for the opportunity to share. God bless America and God bless you. Thank you.
She is going to be giving us a speech entitled, What Next? How to Move the Discussion Forward on Tax Code Replacement. She's the editor-in-chief of zpolitics.com and the co-host of Georgia's Morning News with Zoller and Bryant. She's a very familiar face in Gainesville since her recent run for Congress, from which she assures me she has fully recovered. She is a gracious and wonderful woman. We love her very much. Please welcome Martha Zoller to the stage.
Thank you very much for having me here. I appreciate it. And you know, I made my notes on my hand, just like Sarah Palin did, right? You know, I want to tell you, first of all, I've had people ask me questions. What's happening to the Tea Party? Where is the Tea Party? We're right here, folks. We're in our communities. We're doing things and we're getting things done. And I want to tell you, before I get into what next, a little story about how we are making a difference in what we are doing. I went down, I'm on the board of the Jekyll Island Foundation, and they're doing some restoration things there. And as you know, the Jekyll Island is known for having that little meeting about the Federal Reserve about 100 years ago, a little more than that. And the guy that's the chief historian there at Jekyll Island had a meeting. The Atlanta Feds met down for the 100th anniversary of the Fed. They met at Jekyll Island and they invited, I mean, I'm talking, this was a who's who. Ben Bernanke, Alan Greenspan, you name it, whoever's been chairman of the Fed for the last 25 years, they were there. And this was a big celebration, okay? So the historian was asked to come in and talk about the Fed and the history of the Fed, and he gave the history. And Ben Bernanke says, and that's all you're going to say? And he was just told a little thing, and he goes, well, with all due respect, Mr. Bernanke, 10 years ago, no one even cared that the Fed started at Jekyll Island. 10 years ago, no one was even asking this question about the Fed. Now, every group that comes through Jekyll Island for a tour, and I'm sure it happens in other places too, they want to know about the history of the Fed. They want to know about it. We weren't asking questions about the Fed 10 years ago, but we are now. We have made a difference. We have changed the discussion, and we are going to move forward from that. That's what's important. We may think we haven't made any progress, but we have. We have made progress. Look, we have to be persistent. We have to be positive. And we have to make sure that we are out there, and I'm looking at my notes here, passionate. Passionate, persistent, and positive. Let me tell you why. Because the progressives are also. They are passionate, persistent, and not very positive, okay? That's what we've got on them that they don't. But do you think that they got the income tax just the first year they tried? No. This was an effort from the beginning of our republic to try to tax your income. They were persistent. They didn't give up. All right? Look at the website of the Democratic Party and of the Georgia Democratic Party, and they have a line on there that says, for 200 years, we have stood for civil rights, for workers' rights, for all that kind of stuff. They're rewriting history. But the other thing they said was for more than 100 years, they have been trying to get government paid for health insurance. Now, I don't know if it's been 100 years, but it's been a long time. They've been working on that as a goal. They do not give up because they lost an election or 2 or 3 over the last 75 years. They haven't given up. And we can't do it either. One of the biggest challenges for us as a group is that most of us are small business owners. Most of us work for smaller companies. Most of us are independent thinkers. It's hard to follow the leader, especially when you don't have a good leader, but it's hard to follow the leader when you're a bunch of independent thinkers. You know, I used to be a Democrat. Some of y'all know that if you read some of the campaign literature about me. I used to be a Democrat. And in 1988, I decided, because the convention was in Atlanta, that what better way for me to find out if I am a Democrat or not than to volunteer for the convention, because I'm a joiner. I'm a person that likes to be in a group, that likes to try to get things done. So I found out really quickly in volunteering for that convention that this was a group of people that whined about people who were successful. This was a group of people that liked to get together and say what was wrong with everybody else, and that's why their life's lot was different. Well, Tea Party people and real Republicans aren't like that. They don't look at a situation and say, what's wrong with this other person? They say, what can I fix in my own life to make my situation better? Should I get an education? Should I get some? We are about fixing things on our own. And that makes us more difficult to control, which is a good thing. But it also makes it more difficult for us to stay together on things. And we have to stay together. We're here today because it's the 100th anniversary, which is kind of a sad anniversary, of the income tax. Okay? And it was never supposed to be more than 3%. And I don't know, what's the effective rate now for most people? Anywhere from 15% to 30%, depending on what your income is and that kind of thing. It was never supposed to be an 80,000-page code that was so hard to understand. But that's what happens when you give governments the right to tax. They're going to start taxing you more for as long as they can. It's never enough. It is a beast that has to be fed. So what do we need to do? I used to say we needed to reform the tax code. And then I got together with my friend Herman Cain, and he and I sat down and talked. And he says, Martha, I love what you have to say except for one word. We need to replace the tax code. Because when you reform something, you just chip around the edges. Let me tell you something, folks. The thing that should be a rallying cry for us on almost any issue is comprehensive reform. If the term comprehensive reform comes before something, you probably ought to organize. Not run away, but organize. Because when they talk about comprehensive reform, what they want to do is to continue to make things happen that are better for the government entities. There's two things that I would like to, that I want to leave you with, or that I would like to impart upon you. Number one, I'm a fair taxer. Okay, I believe in the fair tax. I have been for more than 10 years. But I know what we have to do to get to the right kind of tax replacement is we have got to sunset this current code. In 2000, Congressman Nathan Deal said we should sunset the code in 7 years and then put the fair tax in. It's now 2013. It's 13 years beyond that statement. And we're nowhere closer to doing it. Doesn't mean we give up, but we're nowhere closer to doing it. We need on the federal level to sunset the current code and replace it with the fair tax. If that doesn't happen, we need to at least debate these other tax systems that are out there, flat tax, fair tax, whatever it is. But I'm a fair taxer. I believe it's the right way to go. I believe it is the only way to grow this economy, get people back to work, and have a fair taxation system that is based on how you utilize the system. You use it, you pay for it. You don't use it, you want to live off of your rebate, you want to live off of any of that, fine. And the government's not in your business anymore to know what you own or what you earn. That is not the government's business. That's number number one on the federal level, and we've got some people that are trying to move it along. Rob Woodall is trying to move it along. There are other people that are up there. We're starting to get hearings, and granted, it is a snail's pace. But we cannot give up. We cannot walk away. That is what they want us to do. They want us to get tired and go back to our jobs. They want us to get tired and go back to our lives. Because you know what? Most of us here are people that are contributing to this economy. And so if we go do that, that's fine, and we're out of their hair. We have got to be positive and persistent and passionate. And we got to do it with a smile on our face, folks. And let me tell you something. As being somebody that went through a pretty tough year last year, I learned the value after spending about 48 hours in a pity party that I was not going to get anywhere doing that. And I got up and I dusted myself off and I said, how can I move the conservative movement forward? And that's what I'm doing. And you can do it too. Number one, federal level. Number two, on the state level. And I said this to the governor on Tuesday, and I'm going to say it to the governor every time I see him. The cornerstone of any campaign in this next election for governor has got to be a replacement of the Georgia tax code, a repealing of the income tax, and a replacing it with a consumption-based tax. I understand that the conventional wisdom is you can't do that until you're in a second term. But I think if somebody was bold about it, they could get it done even in a first term. Now, we've got to change. We have got states all around us competing with us. I know people, and I bet you know people that have moved to Florida because of the tax code. They might still have a house in Georgia, okay, but they're not producing in Georgia anymore. They're producing in Florida. We have got a lot of competition here, and we need to have how the money is collected has to reflect the 21st century. I'm not a no-tax person. I understand there is a certain amount of cost that goes into providing the limited functions that government is supposed to provide, but it shouldn't be something that grows every year, and it shouldn't be something that is not based on consumption, because I believe that that is the right way to go. So we need to be passionate and persistent and positive when we approach all of these issues. Now, we're going to have a tough time, because I don't know who is going to challenge any of these constitutional officers from the governor on down. John Barrow cannot run for everything, okay? John Barrow is probably going to run for the United States Senate, but he cannot run for everything. And the Democratic Party bench is so decimated that if you're going to the grandchildren and the children of previously elected officials just because of name recognition, you're in trouble. Yep. But that doesn't really help us, and I'm a Republican and I'm a conservative. That doesn't help us because we can't hold these folks accountable if nobody's going to challenge them. Woo! Thank you. So I believe in the primary system. Even though I got my butt kicked, I believe in the primary system. I believe that candidates are better when they have to debate their ideas. I believe that the government is better when they know we are watching them. Now, I am not running for anything in 2014. My husband has told me I need to make a living for the next couple of years. But I did start zpolitics.com because I believe we need some in-depth coverage and telling the truth about Georgia politics. And that's what I'm going to be doing. So I hope you'll be a part of it. And I'm also going to be on the radio, and I'm still going to be telling the truth. You know, I am out there trying to do that. So, in summary, we got to be passionate. We got to be positive. We've got to be persistent. We cannot give up if we have a bad day. We cannot give up if we have a bad election cycle, because it's too important. And they're going to try to write us off as crazies. They're going to try to write us off as people that you shouldn't listen to or pay attention to. But you know what? We're the people that pay the bills. We're the people who are paying the taxes. And we deserve to be listened to. So I hope that you'll be a part of everything that we do. I'm so glad you're here. I believe in the Tea Party, and you know what? Maybe we're not rallying with 100,000 people, but we have got people in businesses, in organizations out there talking this message, and we are not going to give up. Thank you very much. I appreciate you having me today.